Hey everyone, today Israel is still fighting with Iran, right? We spoke about Israel, we tried to understand its history, why it continues to defend itself from all of its neighboring countries in our previous video. And as the conflict today grows between the Israel and Iran, we would like to try to understand about Iran today. Okay, this is the country Iran. It's an Asian country. Um, Lots of things to understand Iran, right? It's like we will have to understand the Islamic revolution which happened in Iran in 1979. We have to understand what was before Islamic revolution, what is there after Islamic revolution, right? We will also have to understand the continuous foreign intervention from be it Russia, from UK, from US, continuously. And then we will also try to understand why it is so interesting. Like it is one of the top 10 countries producing oil and gas, and that is probably one of the big interest of all of these foreign interventions in this country called Iran. And then very interesting, we will also try to understand how once a friend like US and Iran were friend at one point of time, but today they are foe enemies. So we will discuss and understand all of that today, and it will give clarity of today's state of Iran. But before that, few basics. Iran, its capital is Tehran. As you can see, this city over here, its capital is Tehran, and they speak Persian, that is Farsi. They don't speak Arab. So, despite being close to all of these Arabian countries, Iran is not an Arab country, right? As we spoke in other video also, that people who speak Arabic language, they are Arab. But Iran, in here the language is Persian, that is Farsi, and that's why they are not an Arab country. Okay. Um, if you see Wikipedia, they start Iran's history from 3200 BCE, means about 5225 years from now. Just informing, if you read about India in Wikipedia, they start our history from about 55,000 years ago. Just FYI. Anyway, Iran considers themselves older than Roman or Greek, and they say they are traditionally and culturally very strong. Okay. So coming back to its geography, it has borders with 7 countries, as you can see: Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, Iraq, right? And in this side, Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. So it has a border with these 7 countries. But if you include sea, then it has 13 neighbors, right? We saw about 7 land borders, and then it has 6 neighbors towards through the sea line. It is Kuwait, it is Bahrain, obviously Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and Oman over here. So in total, it has 13 neighboring countries, including land and sea. All right. If you see this area over here, very interesting it is. It is Persian Gulf, right? So yeah, this is Gulf area called Khari. So this is called as Persian Gulf, but it is called Persian Gulf because as I told you, Iran speaks the language Persian, that is Farsi, and if you ask Iran, they call it as a Persian Gulf. If you ask any of the Arab country, they call this as an Arabian Gulf. So it depends where you are located. So Iran people, they call it as Persian Gulf. Arabian countries, they call it as Persian Gulf. And those who are neutral to these 2 countries, they prefer to call it as the Gulf. They don't say either of the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf. They call this as the Gulf. And this is one interesting area. If you can see this small triangular kind of space, right? This is called Strait of Hormuz. It is Strait of Hormuz. So strait is basically any water body connecting two other water bodies. So this is called Strait of Hormuz. It is a water body connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. You see here, this Strait of Hormuz, very important strategic location. This is called Strait of Hormuz. It is a small water body of I think around 160-70 kilometers. It connects Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and it's again the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open sea, right? It's the only sea passage. That's why it's strategically very important choke point. And before I tell you why it is choke point, so 20% of world's natural gas and 25% of oil, it passes through this Strait of Hormuz. You can understand the importance now, right? Because of these, all of these countries are oil producing countries, and 20% of the natural gas from Iran obviously, and 25% of the oil from all of these countries, they all pass through this Strait of Hormuz. And Iran, what it does, and why we call it as choke point, several times it uses its navy to stop this passage so that every other country can come to its own terms. Otherwise, if it just blocks this passage, then the price of oil will inflate across world. In recent war also they tried to, but then they have not stopped it completely yet. So let's see. But yeah, this is very important, strategically very important point. It's a choke point of 160-70 kilometers called as Strait of Hormuz. All right, before we speak about recent history to understand why and how about today's Iran, some interesting facts which may interest us as Indians. So Mughals, though not the not exactly Iranian rulers, they were coming towards from Uzbekistan. Babur had come from Uzbekistan, so they were not direct Iranian rulers. But then this Mughal dynasty had the Persian origin, and they were deeply influenced by the Persian culture. And then you might have heard about Nadir Shah, a very famous name in history, Nadir Shah. He had invaded India. He was a ruler of Iran. So Nadir Shah was the ruler of Iran, and he attacked Delhi in 1739 and defeated Mughal emperors in the Battle of Karnal, right? So, and post that battle, he even massacred about 20 to 30,000 people in Delhi. So, that's why people remember Nadir Shah as a very cruel emperor. He is called Napoleon of Persian because he had invaded many countries and won, and he had come to Delhi also, as I told, in 1739, defeated Mughals, and he had done the massacre of 20 to 30,000 of Indians as well in Delhi. And yeah, he took the peacock throne, which served as the symbol of Iranian or Persian imperial might. So he took the peacock throne from Delhi to Iran, and he had also obviously taken the Kohinoor and other diamonds, and then he returned to Iran. So it is said that Nadir Shah had taken so much of wealth and jewels from India to Iran that he had stopped taxation in Iran for around 3 years. So you can imagine how much wealth he had taken back from India. Anyways, we'll come back to today's topic and we'll focus on Iran, and we will talk only from 20th century onwards today. Before that, there are two branches of Islam, right? Shia and Sunni. So what are they? How they formatted? Just a quick brief. So after the death of Prophet Muhammad, two successors came up to lead Islam. One person was the friend or cousin of Prophet Muhammad. Another was the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad. So then followers of the cousin, they were called Sunni, and followers of the son-in-law, they were called Shia. About 90% of world's Muslims are Sunni, only 10% are Shia. So all of these countries, considering from Saudi Arabia to India to these countries towards its east, they all have mostly the Sunni population. Okay, only few countries, Iran almost full, around 90% of Iran population are Shia, few in Iraq and few in Yemen. Otherwise, 90% of world's Muslim population are Sunni. But considering Iran here again, Iran has around 90% of their 95% of their population as Shia Muslim. So you can understand the religious structure of Iran. They have 90% of their population as Shia. And that's why you can understand now there is a conflict between Iran and countries like Saudi Arabia. I'll tell you the reasons. So yeah, first is that Saudi Arabia is heavily Sunni population, Iran is heavily Shia population, right? And Iran always says, as I told in the beginning also, that they are traditionally, culturally very strong. They have a very vast history. They are older than Roman or Greek, correct? So they want to be the leader of Islams across the world. But what has happened is Saudi Arabia, they have bigger land also than Iran. Muslims have their holy places like Makkah, Medina in Saudi Arabia. And virtually everybody considers Saudi Arabia to lead Islam across the world. So we always see a conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia also. That's a one conflict always existing, because today also when Israel is attacking on Iran, these Arab countries are not supporting Iran. Though you know that Arab countries have always been opposite or they have always been in conflict with Israel, right? But in this conflict, they are not supporting Iran because of this reason, because of Shia-Sunni dynamics also. In Iran, as I said, they are Shia Muslims, and the religious leaders there, they are called ulemas, and even if somebody is even more influential or powerful than ulemas, they are called ayatullah. Okay, so now we'll start from 20th century, as I said. So 1901, some reports came that Iran may have big oil fields. Okay, so this report again Britishers also got to know, and then they made an agreement with the king of Iran that Britishers will do the extraction. They will find the oil fields, they will do the extraction, and they will sell the oil across the world, and in return they will give 16% of profit to the Iran prime minister or Iran government. So that was the agreement made. And they started finding, it took lots of time and effort to find those oil fields, and eventually 1908, they started in 1901, and in 1908 they were able to find the oil fields in Iran. And now they started obviously extracting it, selling it across the world, and Iran was getting hardly 16%. Now you can imagine what will happen to the people of Iran. They will feel that you are using my oil field to sell it across the world and giving us only 16%. So people were quite angry, and they were angry on the king as well, because the king had made such a kind of agreement with the Britishers. So now when this happened, when people were angry and some kind of revolution was happening across, or strikes were happening across the country, religious leaders across the Iran, which I said ulema and ayatollah, they took the opportunity and they became powerful, and because of the uplift of the religious leaders like ulema and ayatollah, and growing angst amongst the people in Iran, the king was Reza Shah. He was there, but he was just decoratory now, and religious leaders had taken over the governance, and they were calling their own governance practice as Majlis. Okay, so yeah, okay, 1908, there was a king, there was some growing dissent across the population, and religious leaders took over the governance. They called the governance as Majlis. King Reza Shah, he was still there, but he was still there only as a decoratory figure. Governance was being done by the religious figure called as Majlis. Now, Majlis, their main objective was to stop Britishers from using this oil, and they eventually told Britishers to go from here. They cannot use this oil. They cannot sell this oil. That was told by Majlis to Britishers. So, see, this Iranian oil, it had become a major economy for the Britishers. So they would not like to go, obviously. So, 1917, what happened? Britishers, they elevated Reza Shah's son. Reza Shah was a king, right? They elevated Reza Shah's son, who was called Muhammad Reza Khan Pahlavi. Very important name, Muhammad Reza Khan Pahlavi. They made him the king, and they gave him more power, and they gave him all kinds of aid also. And eventually, yes, religious leaders had to take backseat because of the Britishers' influence to the king, and king again took over the governance. So Majlis had taken the back seat. They were still there, but they had taken the back seat. So I'll tell you, 1908, king had taken the back seat. Majlis took over. 1917, Majlis took the back seat, and king had taken over again. Now, this Reza Khan Pahlavi, you will be surprised to know that he was little Western, and he was quite secular, and he had done the full modernization of the whole country, right? When I tell you about modernization, I'll give the example like women were allowed for sports. They were playing basketball. They were going to movies. They were going to jobs, right? And Reza Khan also brought schools, trucks, buses, cinemas, radios, telephone, etc. to the country. So he had done the full modernization of the country, right? But while doing this, people say that he was too fast to do this, and because of that, he had to increase taxes. Poor were suffering, lots of corruption and oppression were there, and this all happened during the tenure of Reza Khan Pahlavi. And he also, modernization was at the peak. The way you see today that burqa is mandatory, etc. He had banned burqa that time in the country called as Iran. So, and he had also increased the commission from 16 to 20% from the Britishers. Still, Iran, they were not happy. They were saying that though you have increased it to 20%, but it is our oil field. Everything, every profit, every bit of profit should be ours. Why will it go to the Britishers, right? So this dissent was there within Iran people always. Now, Second World War happened, right? We were talking about 1908 first, then we talked about 1917 and the kingdomship of Reza Khan Pahlavi. It continued till Second World War. Now, when Second World War is happening, this Reza Khan Pahlavi from Iran, he started talking to the country Germany, right? So here we have Germany here on the map, and that time Second World War, Germany was more powerful, right? They eventually won the war also. So he started talking to Germany because he was very progressive and he always wanted Iran to develop, and for that sake he started talking to Germany. So Russia and Britain. So that time Russia and Britain was here, right? Because this was India before independence. So this was also part of India, and Britishers were here. So Britishers were at the border state of Iran, and they were eventually doing the oil business with Iran as well. So Britishers and Soviet Union, they were not happy as Iran had started to talk to Germany, and eventually they both attacked Iran to oust Germany from Iran. They wanted German people to go out of Iran, and this is the point. Now US enters this beautiful scenario. So Second World War again, as you know, US also was becoming powerful, and they started to support Russia and Britain, because that time Russia, Britain and US, they were allies, and they wanted to fight against Germany. So that time, yes, US started to support Russia and Britain in this war, and they eventually wanted Germany to go out of Iran. And then US started to give lots of aid to Iran, and eventually US wanted to become major player in Iran. Their major interest was in their oil fields, and as they knew that they are heavy exporter of oil and gas, so that was a major interest of US here. So again, see, first it happened in 1908 when the religious leaders like Ayatollah came in picture, and they wanted oil, all the business of oil to be with Iran itself. That was first instance. Now after the Second World War, there is a second instance where a similar thing happened. They had a PM called Mohammad Mossadegh, right? And he always had this vision that Iran should sell its own oil and no other intervention should be there. So he secured votes in parliament. He was the prime minister. So he secured votes in the parliament. He nationalized the oil. Means outsiders now they cannot sell, right? And this guy got full support from the public as well. And he played a major role in doing the nationalization of oil for the Iran. And he became more powerful than king also. This was a setback for US and UK, right? And they put lots of sanctions, saying it's breach of the agreement, and they had stopped all other countries also to buy any sort of oil from Iran. So Iran started suffering, and ultimately they sent their intelligence agencies like CIA and MI6 to the Iran, and they ensured that the PM is removed. And yes, again the Reza Khan, he came into power. He was still king, but he got more power, and he started working for the US. Okay, so first in 1908, religious leaders came and the king took the back seat. Majlis took the front seat. 1917, Majlis took the back seat and king took the front seat. Again, after Second World War, because of this prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, he became the prime minister. He had the full support of the people, so he took the front seat and king had to take the back seat. But after the US and UK sent their intelligence units to the Iran and ensured that the prime minister is removed, again king took the front seat, and the foreign countries like US, UK, they continued to use oil of Iran and sell it across the world. But as the growing resent was there in the Iran about this, and third time, and this is very crucially important time, the third time, when there is an Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, okay, he also started on the same line as the previous prime minister Mohammad Mossadegh, and he was a big religious leader, right? He had lots of influence of the on the people of Iran, and he started all kind of hate speech about the king. He started influencing people that no, it is our own oil, we should sell our own oil, and nobody else should intervene here. So as his influence was growing, and because of him, the lots of revolts, lots of strikes were happening across the country. The king Reza Khan, he ensured he is sent outside of the country, and the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, he was sent to Iraq from Iran, because being in country you will continue to influence people against me, so let's throw you out of the country. And he was sent to Iraq. Iraq is the border country, right? So Khomeini was here, but he continued his speech from the Iraq also, right? And he was always telling that there should not be any human way of ruling the country. It should always be the Allah way of ruling the country. It should be the rule of God. And he was influencing people left, right, and everywhere. So even his cassettes were being smuggled to Iran, and people used to listen to him in Iran because his cassettes were banned in Iran. So they were getting smuggled, and people used to hear it in the Iran country. his influence was growing so much. And I had told you in Iraq also we had few Shia Muslims, right? Iran, Iraq, and Yemen. So Iraq also had some Shia Muslims, and his influence was growing so much that even Saddam Hussein was afraid that I may start getting revolution across my country. Saddam Hussein himself was Sunni, by the way. Okay, yeah. So Iraq was led by Sunni, but they had Shia Muslims also in this country. So, seeing his influence, he again told, no, no, this guy cannot stay in my country. And he eventually threw him from his own country also. And he went to France. So now Khomeini, he traveled from Iran to Iraq, Iraq to France. So protests continue to happen, and by late 1970, the resistance to the Reza Khan's rule had reached a breaking point, and yeah, there were ideological tension between the Reza Khan and Khomeini, and the anti-government demonstrations also were happening throughout the country. And in 1977, there was a campaign of civil resistance across Iran and mainly against the king. Mass protests were happening everywhere, right? So by the January 1979, then when the revolution had become a broad-based uprising and cannot be controlled, then the king went into exile as the last Iranian monarch. So monarchy ended in 1979, and Khomeini, he returned to Iran and he took over the government, and that's what is called as Islamic Revolution. When the monarchy ended and theocracy took over, means religious leaders will now lead the country. That's what happened in Iran. And right when the Khomeini came back, he did voting, and 98% vote came for shifting to an Islamic Republic. So Iran changed to Islamic Republic, and since that day we have Khomeini as the supreme leader of Iran. So it was Ruhollah Khomeini then, and after him, the reign was taken over by Ali Khomeini. And in between, when Ruhollah Khomeini took over, then there's a famous story that the people from Iran, they attacked the U.S. embassy, and they took hostage of around 52 Americans. Right, there was a US embassy in Iran, and they attacked, and they took hostage of 52 Americans, and their demand was to send back the king so that he can be brought to justice, and only then they will release these 52 Americans. And ultimately the king, who was in US, and he was suffering with cancer, he died in the US itself. But that tells you how slowly US has started to become the enemy for Iran, right? So once US was giving aid to Iran, US was seeing Iran and Saudi Arabia as two policemen who can take care of Middle East countries. So that's how the bond was. But then slowly, yes, it deteriorated, and to the point that now they are perfect enemy, and we see the current war also, that US is supporting Israel against Iran. So today, again coming back to the country of Israel, it is always fighting for its own existence, right? It knows that if Iran makes a nuclear weapon, it will use it only against Israel, because Iran has been supporting Hamas people, Hezbollah, all of those militant groups, to ensure that Israel does not exist, right? So Israel knows it cannot allow Iran to build any nuclear weapon. And building nuclear weapon is not an easy task, right? They procure the uranium, they enrich the uranium, then they make the nuclear weapon. So it takes time. And now it was time probably when Iran was about to make it in a few months or so. So now Israel started to attack on Iran. And again, there is always a hidden agenda, right? Probably US is using Israel to attack on Iran to get hold of their oil fields. So you don't know the hidden agenda, but that is what it is said, that Israel is attacking Iran because Iran was making nuclear weapon, and even US also attacked Iran once now in this current war of last 12 days, where it has attacked on one of its all of its basically nuclear establishments. And as of now when I'm talking, Trump has announced that both countries, Iran and Israel, they have agreed for the ceasefire. Yeah. On that note, I will close for today. It has been a long talk, but hope you understand the history of Iran and how foreign interventions continue to happen in Iran, and today also it is happening, and Iran has ensured that it safeguards its own interests, and how US, once a friend of Iran, became an enemy of Iran today. It's majorly because of the oil fields, and it is one of the major exporters of natural gas and oil. Probably that is one of the biggest reason. All right, then we'll see you in another session.